Welcome to Deer Camp Live. I'm Brian Otten, manager of WisconsinOutdoorFun.com. We are standing here behind the DNR's offices in Green Bay, and we're coming live from this location to talk about the upcoming 9-day gun deer season. This morning I've got a number of guests with me. First we're going to talk to Kevin Wallenfang. He is the big game ecologist. Did I have that right?
You got her.
All right. With the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Later on in the show, we'll have Carrie Zylka, who's a blogger on WisconsinOutdoorFun.com and a podcast host. She's going to do some product reviews, and we'll talk about the season a little bit with her, as well as with Jeff Pritzl, who is a wildlife biologist with the DNR. Kevin, I guess to get things rolling here, and again, I want to welcome everybody who's out there watching right now across Wisconsin. You know, there's a lot of, every year there's a few regulation changes that Wisconsin's deer hunters should be aware of. Can you talk about a little bit some of those changes that that hunters, before they head to the woods this weekend, should really be aware of?
Sure. And you know, the nice thing about this year is that there are only a few, and for the most part, they really offer new opportunities for people. So let's start out with trail cameras. This year there was a new rule passed that will allow people to keep their trail cameras on public properties. In the past you couldn't do that, but you can put your trail cameras out there, leave them out for weeks on end if you choose to. There are some extra little rules that go along with that. You have to have your name and your address on it, or your DNR customer service number. So that's a new one this year. Let's not mistaken that, though, with leaving a tree stand out on public lands. You still cannot leave a tree stand overnight on public property, so you want to make sure you're taking that stand out with you every day when you're done hunting. There are a few other ones out there. One of them is that you can shoot coyotes statewide this year during the regular gun deer season and all the late seasons as well. We haven't been allowed to shoot coyotes in Wisconsin since the 1980s, actually, during the gun season in northern Wisconsin, where our wolf population is, and that was a precaution so that wolves were not being shot. But this year there is a wolf hunt going on, and so you can shoot coyotes this year.
Okay. And I know the DNR has taken some special efforts to sort of help hunters distinguish between coyotes and wolves. Can you talk about some of those things that are available online with the DNR to help hunters out?
Sure. You can go right to the DNR website, and there are a series of photographs and whatnot on there that give a really good description, things to look for, body posture, all kinds of things are on there to help distinguish the difference.
Excellent. And speaking of the wolves and coyotes, this year being the inaugural wolf hunt, do you expect that wolf hunt to impact the deer season in any way?
You know, I really don't. As far as the number of deer out there or that sort of thing, you know, the real big difference here this year is there will be a few guys out there with both a deer tag and a coyote or a wolf tag in their pocket, and you know that's history for Wisconsin. It's never been done before. So, but otherwise, you know, some of those wolf seasons the quotas are getting up there where we're getting very close to closing some of the zones down. So I would recommend that hunters keep a close eye on that this week. You know, if you can tap into it from your cell phone while you're out hunting or in the evenings in camp, keep an eye on that, because some of the closures are very, very close, and I would expect, you know, here in the next week or so, some of the wolf zones will be closing down.
Okay. There's another thing that hunters probably should be aware of as they head out into the woods, elk and moose. Can you speak to that at all? Yeah,
we just want to make sure that people, you know, knowing your target, knowing what's beyond it, you know, some of the basic rules of hunter safety and firearm safety. But there are there are elk and moose in northern Wisconsin. You know, we have had a few elk shot in the past, so we just want to make sure that hunters identify their target, know exactly what they're shooting at, and avoid shooting one of those big animals.
All right. The last winter, we had a really mild winter, you know, warm temperatures, not a lot of snow. Should hunters expect, because of this last year's mild winter, should they expect better results this year for the deer season?
Well, you know, results are all relative, and you know where you're hunting and whatnot is going to play a big impact on that. Now, certainly we had a very mild winter, one of the most mild winters that we've ever had since we've been recording them, as far as how that impacts deer populations in the state. We had a very mild winter. We would anticipate that a lot of the deer would have came through the winter in very good health. First of all, surviving the winter itself, but then having those fawns survive through the winter, that's in the doe's belly waiting to be born in the springtime. So we would expect that there was good survival out there. We are just starting to get some of the numbers in from our summer fawn doe observations. They look fairly similar to the past few years. So, but you have to combine that with a lot of other things. We have been reducing antlerless deer tags in the north in the last few years, trying to let herds regrow. It's the memory of deer hunters seems to be kind of short sometimes, and they forget that just 3 or 4 years ago we did have some winter in the north that probably killed some deer. We've got some units up there that are buck only this year where hunters will not be allowed to kill those. We're continuing to try to let those herds regrow. So, hunters have to have their expectations of the season a reality check sometimes. And, we've got areas of the state where we've got lots of deer. Most of those are farmland regions. When you get into the forested regions, the habitat is not what it used to be. There are other factors out there that influence those deer numbers. So, it's very important that you scout and your territory where you're hunting and, do the best you can. And, it looks like we're going to get some really good weather. So we're really hopeful that people are going to see a lot of deer this year.
Since you're talking about, sort of the potential for hunters this season, how about those success rates? I mean, what kind of rates are we going to look at in 2012, do you think?
Well, again, that's a tough one to predict. Even in our very best years, an average success rate is somewhere between 1 and 4 guys will get a buck. Roughly 89% of the hunters in Wisconsin will not get a deer or will get only 1 deer. So that wasn't quite right how I said that. 29% of our hunters will get 1 or no deer.
Gotcha.
So roughly, do the math on that, 70% or so will not get a deer. Even in our very best years, like I said, there are not enough bucks out there to go around for everybody to kill a deer every year. So, when you compare Wisconsin's success rates to other states, we're very, very good. But, like any year, there's going to be a lot of folks out there that just will not get a deer.
Sure. Well, to go back a question, I guess we talked a little bit about the mild winter. We had some drought conditions across the state over the summer, and we saw EHD make an appearance this the late summer, early fall. Has EHD it's run its course this fall? Is this something that we're going to see again next year? I mean, is this something that's here to stay?
Well, that's really hard to predict again. Let's back up a little bit. EHD stands for epizootic hemorrhagic disease, and it's a disease that deer get by being bitten by an infected midge parasite, and it will kill a deer very, very quickly. Now, in the grand scheme of things across Wisconsin, it will really not impact our deer harvest numbers at all this year. We found a grand total of about 350 to 400 deer that tested in the affirmative to be carrying that disease. Now, having said that, the disease was found in 8 counties, all in southern Wisconsin. And if you are one of the people that hunt on a piece of property that was hard hit by that disease, your hunting could suffer a little bit this year. We had a report of one property about 800 or 900 acres, and they found roughly 65 dead deer on that property. So, if you're hunting on that property, you could see a little bit tougher hunting conditions this year, at least as far as seeing deer. But in the grand scheme of things, it really won't impact much. Now, whether we see it again next year, we can't predict that. This is only the second time Wisconsin has had confirmed cases of the disease, the first time way back in 2002. So, other states were hit much harder by it. It's a new disease for Wisconsin. Only the future is really going to tell us what the impact is going to be. But we'll continue to assess the situation. We'll be looking for it again next year, especially if we have drought conditions like we had this year.
Okay. So it is connected to the drought?
It's connected to the drought, and the reason for that is primarily because as you lose water on ponds and whatnot, you create a lot more muddy areas that is really good for breeding of those of the flies themselves. So the more flies you have out there, the more likely that it's going to be out there on the landscape.
All right. I have a couple of questions that we've taken in advance from some of our WisconsinOutdoorFun.com's readers. Susanna Carlson, who also blogs for our site, she wondered about what the licensing process is like for a disabled hunter. Is it any different than your regular hunter, or is there some sort of special pieces there?
Well, the difference for somebody with a disability is that they have to apply for a special permit, and there's a variety of them. They are for blind people. They're for temporary disabilities. They're for permanent physical disabilities, amputees, that sort of thing. And it's really not a difficult process, but what it does require is a doctor's signature. And that, once they get that doctor's signature, that will allow them to shoot from a vehicle if they need to. It will allow them to hunt maybe from a four-wheeler. Allow them to participate in some special hunting opportunities. So all they really need to do is go online. They can pull the form right off of there. They fill out the form. They take it to their doctor, and they have a doctor's signature. Oftentimes the doctor there are some requirements that they put them through some physical tests to kind of test the level of their disability, and send it into the department. And otherwise, any other licensing requirements of everybody else applies to the disabled person as well.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Susanna. One of the other questions that comes up pretty frequently are how should hunters, or what are the rules that hunters should be aware of in terms of albino or white deer during this deer season?
That's an interesting rule. Our albino rules date back to, I believe, the 1920s or 1930s, and those rules were really put in place as for tourism, because northern Wisconsin has a population of albino deer, and they wanted to protect those deer so that they would be around for the summer tourism season, and it would be an attraction for people. But the albino rules are still in place, except in the chronic wasting disease zones. So in most of the state, if somebody sees a pure albino deer, that deer is still protected. Piebald is a whole different story. That's a legal deer. If it's got spots of brown on it, sure, that's a legal animal, and they can take it.
Okay. All right. I guess the last question I'm going to have for you here before we wrap up and move things along with our show. Rick Helke asks a question about: is it legal to cut a deer in half in order to haul it out of maybe a place where there's some steep terrain? If you could talk about that a little bit. Sure.
It is legal to do that. Wisconsin has a rule now that your deer can be cut into multiple pieces. I believe the number is 5. And, if a guy wants to just cut that deer in half, that's perfectly fine. He needs to bring everything out except the internal organs, as you would gut the deer normally. But otherwise, they can quarter that deer out, bring it to a registration station with the head, and they should be good to go.
Okay. All right. So hunters, if you're going to cut your deer into pieces, make sure you remember all of them before you take it to the registration station. Okay, well, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to move along to, we've got a special message from the DNR. It's a short piece regarding a Warden ride-along. And when we come back, we'll be talking with Carrie Zylka about a scent killer.
Stick Game Warden, how are you guys doing today? Good. You guys having any luck? To prepare for opening day, just getting out, seeing what's out there for vegetation, seeing where I see deer, talking to locals and finding out where the locals are, what they're seeing, what their intents are, and looking at old complaints and following up on those. The Conservation Warden's priority, I believe, on opening day is safety. Making sure everybody is acting safe and following the laws, educate the people on the hunters on any new laws that might exist, and enforce the laws when we run into those type of situations. What I hope to see on opening day is a lot of people out in the field enjoying themselves, not necessarily focused strictly on the harvest, but enjoying being with families and friends in the field. I hope to see a lot of young people out and about with the adults learning how to hunt, not just how to sit on a stand, but actually learning how to hunt. And I hope to see some success both from senior hunters and novice hunters. I have seen a lot this year with big harvest on bucks. Opening day, I saw a lot of nice bucks, easily the width of their ears or wider, harvested. So that to me sticks out the most so far.
All right, welcome back to Deer Camp Live. I'm joined right now by Carrie Zylka. Carrie lives down in the southern part of the state and blogs for WisconsinOutdoorFun.com, as well as hosting a podcast, which you can listen to on our site. Carrie has her own site, by the way. I should really mention that. Wild World of Carrie Z. Is that right? Okay. Make sure I get everything in there. Carrie's here today. She's going to do a few product reviews. The first one, she is not holding a jar of Citrus Magic or one of those Windex or anything like that. She's got a scent killer that she wants to talk about, and so Carrie, why don't you fill us in?
Well, pretty simple. The Wisconsin deer opener opens up in 4 days, and right now, myself, like many other hunters, are really thinking about tactics and things that you can do to make your hunt more successful so that you can get that big buck or, bag that wily doe. Deer's nose, they smell in the tens of thousands. They're not like us. Our nose stink compared to theirs. So one of the biggest things that you can do is apply scent prevention. In a simple bottle, something like this, like the Dead Downwind Field Spray, it's easy, it's portable, carry it along, and that way if you have coffee in the morning or,
sure,
you have spicy eggs or something, you can spray it on you once you get out to the field and eliminate any scent, even scent that's going to get picked up like in your truck. One of the biggest things to remember is to always spray the bottom of your feet, the bottom of your boots, because a lot of people forget that. They spray their packs and their guns and their hats and their hair, and they tend to forget the bottom of their shoes, which can pick up a lot of different odors. So,
all right,
field spray.
Sounds good. Thanks, Carrie. What we're going to do now is we're going to get a weather report for the opening weekend, and even looking into that 9-day deer season with Mike Francis. So we're going to take a look at what kind of weather hunters can expect.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Francis, Chief Meteorologist in Atlanta, GA. As all of you know watching right now, hunting is a big deal here in the South as well. So we are going to talk about the hunting weather coming up, or hunting, as we like to call it down here in the South. For parts of Wisconsin coming up this weekend. Now let me show you what's happening right now. Across the country, we've got a lot of clouds. Been very, very cold the last couple days in parts of Wisconsin as well, as we've got the jet stream coming in here from the north. You can actually see all these clouds coming in, coming down. Earlier on Monday, had a pretty good shot of cold air, and yes, there's been some snow reported as well. Been pretty chilly so far this winter, as y'all have seen quite a few little bursts of snow up there. Now, as we head into the weekend, all this cold air is going to somewhat dislodge that we have in place across the northern plains, move over towards Canada, and a little bit warmer, more Pacific-style air is going to head in this direction. So let me talk about what the weather is going to look like this coming up Saturday. Of course, that is the opening day of gun season. And sunrise at 6:53. It'll be about 30 degrees, and the sunset will be at 4:32. And it'll be about 45 degrees at that point in time. Now, the moon, that's a big story. It rises early Saturday morning at 8:43, and it sets in the evening at around 5:30. So, there will be no moonlight whatsoever overnight Saturday night into Sunday morning. That is going to help those temperatures stay on the cool side. But nonetheless, when you wake up early sunrise on Saturday morning, 30 degrees, 45 late in the day. I hope everybody has a very safe first day of gun season, and I hope we all enjoy it. Watch out for the deers and stay warm, as you folks up there in Wisconsin definitely going to be getting some cooler air this week. Have a good one.
All right, welcome back to Deer Camp Live. Get that straight. Deer Camp Live. We've got Carrie Zylka here again with another product that she wants to talk about. This time it is a slumper seat. Let's hear about what is a slumper seat.
Well, first I will tell you a not so funny story. Well, it is a funny story, but a couple weeks ago, I had some gals from out of state come in to go hunting, and I was all excited because I was going to use my new portable tree stand. Ha! Yeah, me trying to get a tree stand up by myself on public land didn't really work out. Luckily, though, I had a slumber seat handy so that it had been raining and it was yucky and muddy, and so I went back to the truck and I got the slumber seat, and it helped keep me from getting very wet while I was sitting just at the base of a tree. It was super, super quiet. It's made out of Amerisuede by Timber Ridge, I want to say. It's super light. This is actually the turkey hunter seat, and it can actually be put onto a tree stand. It'll strap right to it, but I used it. It's super soft. It's super cheap. They're awesome. Slumberseats.com. You can't go wrong.
Cool. All right. Well, that sounds good. It looks like a comfortable thing to sit on, and on a rainy day out in the woods. We're going to go to another message from the DNR, and when we come back, we'll be speaking with Jeff Pritzl of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources about deer season a little bit more.
My name is Erin Bain.
My name is Jeffrey.
I'm Becky Patel. I'm from Tomah, Wisconsin.
I'm Cassie Galerno, and I'm from Sparta, Wisconsin.
I'm Kathy Johnson.
I'm Ashley Johnson.
And it sounds to me like you're related.
Yes, she's my grandma.
Go. Nice. The bird's going to come from here. Watch with your eyes, but you don't have to put the barrel way over here.
Hold. We're always going to keep the muzzle in a safe direction. We're going to be sure of our target and what's beyond.
Right up tight to your shoulder here. Put your cheek right down there.
Take your time, line it up.
Down your hunt with Jimmy Simons.
This is my first time, so I've been pretty good at it.
Well, I have been hunting for over 30 years, and it's just kind of a family tradition.
Two. Touching right there. So good that it was like right through the same spot.
So you be sure of your target, and then what's beyond that target. Let's say I've got a deer running right here, and I think, ooh, he's in a good spot. But what's right behind him? A Chevy minivan. Right?
When you're ready, make sure the gun's tight to your shoulder and squeeze the trigger nice and slow. Outstanding. That bullseye's like here, and your bullet hit right there. Yeah, that was good. All right.
It was fun.
So what's next?
We're gonna go hunting for deer.
Look like fun? Think you'd like to give hunting a try? Well, just send an email to this address. Or call this number. We'll tell you where to
Welcome
find
back to WisconsinOutdoorFun.com's Deer Camp Live. I'm back here now with Jeff Pritzl from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Jeff, you are a wildlife biologist, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the district wildlife supervisor for the Northeast region. I spent the first half of my career as a field biologist for Manitowoc, Kewaunee, and Dorr, and now as a supervisor for the Northeast region, deer's become a bigger part of my life too.
All right. Well, there was a couple of items that when I was speaking with Kevin earlier in the show, we kind of forgot to touch on, and maybe you could talk about them. First is a little bit of a change to the way crossbows are allowed in this year's hunt.
Sure. Well, the legislature passed a law last year, which is commonly referred to as now the lesser weapons rule, which means during the gun deer season, you can use a firearm or a quote-unquote lesser weapon, which would include bow and arrow or crossbow. And so that type of equipment is available during the gun deer seasons.
Okay. And one of the other things that we wanted to talk about a little bit was the some of the changes in rules, I believe, to some of the baiting rules in the Northwoods.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did have a new experience with chronic wasting disease up in the far northwest, and because of its location and because of the law that requires no baiting or feeding where there is chronic wasting disease present, that affected 4 counties in the far northwest. I believe Douglas, Washburn, Bayfield, and that might be Ashland, but our regulations now show another 4-county area where no baiting or feeding is allowed.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. My parents actually just bought a house, and in the one of the closets of the house that they bought, they were cleaning things out. They found an unused tag from 1967, and of course they wanted me to see how much it was worth on eBay. Didn't, $20 or so, I told them. But it's kind of a cool thing. One of the questions I wondered about was, if you could go back, to 1967, how does the Wisconsin's deer herd compare now to then, if that's a comparison you can make?
Sure. We're kind of talking about what's happened to the deer population in the life of Jeff Pritzl, because I was born in 1966.
Oh, there you go.
But looking back, we've got records that go back that are quite accurate into the 50s. And so about 1967 was, relative to that time, was an actual spike in the deer population. But it's even at that point, if you look at harvest, in mid-60s, today we are harvesting 10 times the number of deer through archery equipment, and we're harvesting at least twice the number of deer today as we did back then during a regular season. Now, that doesn't mean that on every square mile of Wisconsin there's twice as many deer as there were in the 60s. There's been a lot of changes as far as deer distribution and density. Back in the 60s, the agricultural part of the state really was still almost absent of deer. I mean, the deer hunting was in the northern forest and in the central forest. My family hunted in Jackson County and southern Wood County, and we've seen a lot of changes over the decades. And now it's kind of flip-flop, where the higher deer densities are on the agricultural landscapes, and we still have lots of deer in the north and in the central forest, simply by the virtue of the amount of habitat there is and the size of the forest.
Sure. Well, that's good. That's a good answer. The and if so you're 1 year older than that deer tag, I guess.
And the fact that that somebody would be interested in it just speaks to the strong culture and heritage and people that like to collect that kind of memorabilia.
Sure. The in a chat, you were nice enough last year to join me in a live chat on WisconsinOutdoorFun.com. We talked about a lot of different things. One of the things that we talked about last year were one of the people that participated in the chat was named John, and he had a question about the northern Wisconsin deer units, and that he didn't feel that the quotas there matched up with hunters' expectations. Are you hearing similar kind of complaints this year?
To be honest, it's quite a bit less. I mean, last year there were a few units that we had brought back on to having an antlerless quota. As Kevin mentioned earlier, there are still 6 units up north that are buck only this year. But last year that was around 10 or 12, and there was even more than that 2 years ago. And so we're down to 6 units that are just buck only, and a few around there that have gotten an antlerless quota back now just for 1 or 2 years. There are some people that would have liked to have kept it buck only a little bit longer, but it was either unit perhaps 45. We've heard from a few people, even down in Madison, that were concerned. Antlerless quotas, sometimes we get confused about when we see a number of how many permits are issued. That's calculated based on past performance and success rates. So 500 antlerless permits doesn't mean 500 antlerless deer are going to perish, because every unit has its own success rate based on past history.
Okay. Going back one question too, Barb Carrie, before the live chat here, she sent in a question about, and again this goes back to the crossbow changes. If someone had the proper licenses in the same hunt?
Not necessarily. When you're hunting now during the 9-day gun season, you're using your gun license. However, those that also have an archery license, that license now we opened up where the archery season does stay open during gun season too. So those are both valid for someone that has both permits. And so essentially, I guess if you do have both tags open, I'm thinking bucks. And if you've got your buck archery license and it's still open, and you're hunting with traditional equipment, a bow and arrow, you could fill that with a bow and arrow. Now, with your gun license, you could use your gun, you could use your bow and arrow, or you could use a crossbow on that one. The confusing thing is that, specific to crossbows, the only people that are allowed to use a crossbow on their archery buck license would be folks that are 65 or older or have a special crossbow permit because of disability. So you couldn't, if you had a crossbow, but you're not 65 or you don't have a permit, you could fill your gun buck tag, but not your archery buck tag.
Gotcha. Good question, Barb. Appreciate you sending that one in. Jeff, you were kind enough to point out we're located here for a reason. Again, we're behind the DNR offices here in Green Bay. I think you said that it's Northeast Region headquarters. Yeah. Okay. Behind us, we've got a few different rubs, and I think what we'll do is when Carrie comes down for her next segment, she and I are going to go back there, take a look at those, but I appreciate you pointing those out to us. And I guess before we wrap up with you, is there anything else you want to comment on about this upcoming 9-day season?
I would just say that myself as a deer hunter, just as a deer biologist, I look forward to it just like everybody else. Opening weekend, myself and all of our wildlife staff will be at registration stations. We don't get to hunt opening weekend ourselves, maybe for an hour or two in the morning, but we really look for the opportunity to meet and interact with a lot of hunters, in the next couple of days. And you just get this sense of homecoming and the tradition of what we're about to embark on. There's going to be people I see this weekend that's the one time of the year I see them, and I really look forward to it, hearing their stories, whether it involves a deer or not. Excellent.
I know last year before our chat, I went through our archives looking for photos of you that I could use to sort of promote the chat, and I was amazed at how many times you showed up at a registration station, either down in the Manitowoc area or up here in Green Bay. And I think you're measuring deer and taking all the sort of information that you work with at the registration stations. But
the hunters, they provide the data that we use to monitor and manage this deer population with the efforts that they do in bringing those deer to the registration station this weekend. And this weekend is critical. We will get the age of up to 20,000 animals on Saturday and Sunday.
That's a lot. That is a lot. Well, I appreciate the time, Jeff, and we're going to move things along here to another message from the DNR, and when we're back, we'll be back with Carrie with another product review.
Why should someone become a mentor? What's in it for them?
There's nothing greater than helping out kids. There just isn't.
The passion within you and what you enjoy, you want to pass on to others.
I've been mentoring youngsters, even without a mentoring program, for quite a while.
Back in Laos, the hunting heritage passed along to the children, from grandma, grandpa, from father to son.
My uncle, two uncles started me hunting, and just been ever since. So
we see a lot of kids that are coming back. The families are coming back to the reservations and wanting to learn their history and understanding that may not have had that in the city life. And to bring that to them is a joy, because their curiosity is there.
I personally still remember a story that my grandpa took me out for hunting, and my dad also took me for hunting too.
The father-daughter time together in the woods is special to each of us.
Some of the kids did not have someone to shoot with, so we supplied mentors. We called on friends, neighbors, guys that were good shots, and said, we got a little guy here, he needs a big brother, he needs a buddy for the day.
With the mentoring course, you're one-on-one with that kid. Some guys do two-on-one, and you're always aware.
And these kids learned a lot, but the biggest thing is they learned camaraderie, good sportsmanship. They learned how to properly handle guns, safely handle guns, and things like that.
they get so excited, you know. I mean, you're sitting there and you're calling, but you're watching this kid and his gun is just moving around and he's breathing hard and I got to sit back. You just kind of sit back and laugh, you know, and watch him, you know, and you're watching that bird and it's a lot of fun for us.
It's a little work, but it is totally enjoyable.
And we go even further than just the mentor hunting. We call it mentor gathering and outdoors experience. So we broaden it to having ricing camps, sugar bush camps.
We taught the kids safety, proper gun handling, the anatomy of a gun, things like that.
And I like to pass on my experience with those people that wanted to hunt. It doesn't matter old or young.
The big thing is if you get a chance to mentor a kid, do it. It's the greatest experience you'll ever have.
Sound like something you'd like to be a part of? If you'd like to become a mentor or host a Learn to Hunt program on your land, just send an email to this address or call this number. We'll tell you where to find a Learn to Hunt program near you. We'll put you in contact with our local wildlife biologist or conservation warden. They'll get you started. Don't miss the chance to make a difference. Give something back.
All right, and we're back with Deer Camp Live on WisconsinOutdoorFun.com. I'm Wisconsin Outdoor Fun Manager Brian Otten. I'm back with Carrie Zylka, and she's got a couple of more products to review for us this morning. Carrie, what have you got?
All right, the first one I have. I just thought I'd take this opportunity right about now. I don't work in retail, but I can imagine that rifle sales are going up in the last couple of weeks in anticipation of the rifle opener. And like them, I recently purchased a Nikon rifle scope. It is a 3-9x40, and I thought I'd take just a quick opportunity to explain what those numbers mean. So 3-9 means that this scope will zoom in 3 to 9 times what your human eye will see. The 40 at the end of it means that the objective lens is 40 millimeters across. So when you're looking to buy, you know, a new scope for your rifle, or because you busted the old one like I did, just something to keep in mind of what those numbers mean. It's a very, very cost-effective scope. It's perfect for Wisconsin. I mean, we don't need to shoot 500 yards, so it's perfect.
All right, excellent. Well, what we're going to do now is, like I mentioned earlier, Jeff had pointed out there's a couple of rubs back here. We're going to take a little walk back here. Carrie's going to walk with me. We're going to take a look at these rubs. We're going to talk about, I guess, what hunters should be aware of. I guess how should hunters
rubs or scrape lines is not the most effective way, to be honest with you. It lets you know that a dominant buck is in the area. It lets you know that there's an active buck somewhere. But to be honest with you, when it comes to the rut, the deer are trying to anticipate where they're going to be at what time on a rut. In your topography, you're going to want to hunt the wind and the ideal hunting locations that way.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. The again, thanks. We appreciate the DNR allowing us to film this today in their backyard here in Green Bay. We've got one more product review, and actually this product comes from the DNR. That hunters should be aware of, particularly hunters with Android phones. Yes. Carrie, can you describe the app and just how it makes sort of hunting easier?
Absolutely. Everybody knows that they should be carrying the little DNR pamphlet, the one with the times in the back, right? For years and years and years, everybody had one in their pack. But last Saturday, I'm sitting out there, and it's pretty close to end of shooting time. I was bow hunting, and I couldn't remember exactly what time that it ended. So I remembered that the DNR had come out with a new app for the sunrise and sunset times. I downloaded it. It cost 99 cents. It was super easy. It downloaded in like a minute, and I was able to tell exactly what time I needed to be out of the woods. It's very handy.
Awesome. That's something new, and definitely sounds like something that might be helpful for hunters this year.
Yep.
I guess before I wrap up with you, Carrie, I know you're a big bow hunter, and I know you do that, and you participate in the gun deer season. You want to talk a little bit about what you like about each of those seasons and how they're different, and what sort of draws you to each?
Sure. I guess for me, I started bow hunting several years ago, and it kind of came to the epiphany. It was during the gun season, and I was freezing, and I was up in the tree stand. I hadn't seen anything, and I was like, oh, let's give this bow hunting stuff a try, because it's warmer in the early season. But obviously it's a lot more difficult than rifle hunting. Both hunting is, you know, bow or rifle, they're both hard. I mean, deer hunting in general is hard. They don't call them the ghost of the woods for nothing. But bow hunting kind of gives you a little bit more of an edge because you have a longer season. So instead of only having 9 days for rifle, you have, you know, 4 months. You can hunt the second rut in December, which I prefer. But I've been having a rough couple of months here, so I'm like, yay for opening, you know, for rifle this Saturday, because my guns are both sighted in for like 200 yards. So.
All right. Well, hopefully the gun deer season treats you a little bit better than the bow season. Well, I appreciate you coming again today to join us, and thanks again. It was a good time. I'm going to invite Jeff and Kevin down again, and we'll get ready to sort of wrap things up. I should mention that if readers, particularly hunters or maybe people that know hunters, you're all invited to share your hunting stories, your hunting photos. If you happen to bring your camera out and get some good video, we'd be interested in that too. You can send that to WisconsinOutdoorFun.com by clicking the either your news or your photos links at the top of the site. And the other thing I should mention is for, I know a lot of hunters use trail cameras. We've got a trail camera contest going on right now, sponsored by Fleet Farm. There are now hundreds of entries. We draw a new winner every single month. And again, if you go to Trail Camera Contest at the top of our site, you will be able to enter your trail camera photos into that contest. So a lot of good stuff going on. What I should also say is WisconsinOutdoorFun.com is going to be all over the deer hunting opener next weekend, or this weekend, I should say. We've got a network of freelance photographers going to be out taking photos at registration stations around the state, everywhere from La Crosse to I think we've got somebody ready to go up to Rhinelander and Rice Lake and over here to the Fox Cities. So we'll have hopefully big buck photos from all over the state rolling in throughout the weekend. And the thing that you should all remember about Wisconsin Outdoor Fun is it updates daily. So there's always new things to read and look at on our site. Before I say wrap things up for good here, I'd like to give Kevin and Jeff a chance to maybe speak one more time about the gun deer hunt and wrap things up.
Sure. Well, the message I'd send to the hunters out there is, this is a great time of the year to be with your family. It's a great tradition that we have here in Wisconsin. We're right here in Green Bay. There's two things you don't mess with in Wisconsin. That's the Packers and our deer seasons. And, it's part of our culture. You talked about the photographs and the stories. There'll be tens of thousands of great stories produced here in the next few days once the season gets open. And it's just a great time of the year. It's a homecoming for a lot of people. They plan for this time of the year. They plan a year in advance to take their vacation time right now. We've got military people coming home to go deer hunting with their family. Just a great time to be with the family, so make sure everybody out there is safe. Enjoy yourself. Take care of each other. Hopefully you'll see some deer and have a great season. Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. How about you, Jeff?
I would remind hunters that they can share their experiences with us online. If they go on our website, go on the Deer Hunters Wildlife Survey, we want to hear, how many hours did you hunt? How many deer did you see? What were the conditions? And we've got thousands of hunters participating in that already, and the more hunters that participate, the stronger that information gets as an index for us to compare year to year.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Kevin. Carrie, appreciate you coming in today to join us. This is going to wrap up Deer Camp Live. Hopefully this will be the first of many shows like this that we produce over the next few years. If you have questions for Jeff or Kevin, feel free to send them in. I'll make sure they get into their hands, and we'll try to get them answered. Again, thanks for joining us for Deer Camp Live, and on that note, safe hunting, everybody.